I'm going to talk about a little bit about the shadows. Okay, so you can see this one. We put here. This side, it's the lighter side. It's the light side. So here we go. This is the light side. Well, too big. That's the dark side, right? They kind of all have this. See, dark side, light side, 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 dark side, light side. And depends where the light's from, where the light located, and all the shadow. Some has more, some has less, right? So it depends where the light's on. So that means where you place this dark side, where you place on the sphere is very important. Don't just find a place, just put it, okay? You have to say, okay, well, how big the shadow is, right? So you're going to learn two things is very important, three things is very important for you to shade a sphere. So the sphere is the hardest thing to shade. If you know how to shade a sphere, you probably have no problem shading anything else later, okay? Because the sphere, you have to shade with gradients, like from dark to light, okay? It's not like this. See this cube? It's just like this cube, just like dark and light, right? So you don't need the gradients, right? It's just dark and light. But for sphere, have to from the dark gradually go turn to light, right? So you have to do that. So that's why I'm going to show you how to do that. But also, like, you have to practice to get it right. So, okay, now I'm going to talk about when you shade anything round, like a sphere or a cylinder, right? Or like those corn. If anything is rounded, then they have something called a core shadow, called a core shadow. So I'm going to tell you what is a core shadow. A core shadow is a darker shadow between dark and light. You can tell in which one is more, okay, this one is more obvious, right? You can see this shadow here. That's called a core shadow, okay? It's kind of between the light and the dark part, right? And so this core shadow is the darkest part. And this too, you can slightly tell this kind of like a core shadow running down here, right? And that's kind of the darker part between light and the dark side. Between light side, dark side, there's a core shadow. Now you think, so why core shadow is not on the bottom, right? Because that's more away from the light. So that's a very good question. So now, as that said, now we have to think about what make a core shadow not on the edge, but in kind of in the middle, right? In between the light and dark. Because, the sphere is round, right? So every part of it facing different lights, right? Every part of it facing different lights. So the bottom, when the bottom turned around, right? So the bottom part facing the light from the table. So the table reflect light on the sphere. the table reflects light on the sphere. Now get it? So that's why the bottom is kind of lighter. It's kind of lighter than the core shadow, right? So that's a reflect light. You can see this one very obvious, right? The bottom super light than the top, right? Because the table is so bright, then it reflect the light on the sphere. So now you know a sphere, it has a core shadow and reflection. So here's a highlight. That's the light side. That's the shadow. The whole thing has shadow. And here is a core shadow. Then is this a reflect light. And this guy, the darkest part, called a casting shadow. So the sphere cast a shadow on the table. So it's called casting shadow. So when you're drawing casting shadow, and make sure you're looking at where the start from the sphere. See, every casting shadow start at different parts of the sphere. See, that looks like that. That is from there. This from here. And this from here, right? So make sure you're looking at that, not just like randomly draw a shadow, right? Look at the location of it. Now, for that, I'm going to shade a sphere. This is the easiest. So I'm going to shade a easy one, okay? Then you can see like how I did it for a sphere. Okay, so when we shade, we always shade from dark to light. All right. I'm only going to grab a HB pencil. So from dark to light, so I have like a little line here to mark my core shadow, right? See, very light. Then I start from here. See, very, very light in the beginning, then faded. Gradients on the bottom is faded, right? So it's dark here, then faded light, right? So I faded. Then I think, oh, that's kind of the right place, right? Then see how I hold the pencil. It's very loose, right? Very, very loose. So I hold like this. Then I start over again from here over again. I added more layers, so get darker, right? You have to just like very loosely. So if you push too hard, it looks like that. Okay, it doesn't look good. So you kind of push lightly, and looks like this. And you think, oh, it's still not dark enough. I'm going back. The reason is this layer, you can make it more smooth looking. Or some kids, they use finger to do this, you know. But I don't like to do that. I like to use my pencil to shade it. But if you like didn't practice a lot, it's hard for you to shade it very smooth. So sometimes you do that. In the beginning is okay, I guess, as long as you make it like a three-dimensional shape. So this lighter part, I shade super, super light because I wanted to gradient, right? I shade it super, super light. Okay. Now, it's about like that. I'm not going to shade the background. If I want to shade the background, I can shade from this thing out, from the object out. See, from the object out, I don't shade from out to in, so I can keep the shape of the sphere, right? Now, after this, right, then when I shade the casting shadow, you know, the casting shadow, the shadow cast by the sphere, I definitely pay attention to where this start, and the shape of it. So I mark it like this, right? Also, I'm going to start like from here out, okay? Not from out in. So I can keep the shape, see? I'm keeping the shape by shading this and out. Because the casting shadow is darker than the core shadow, right? Than the core shadow. So you can switch a 2B, or you can use HB, just keep shading it, because it is darker. And also you can notice that actually this part is a little bit lighter than here, right? So I make sure that not get too dark, but darker part is like right here. Out. Oh, that looks like kind of darker than here. I think that's about enough. Yeah. So yeah, that's how you shade it.